What's going on, y'all? It's your girl Tanisha Peoples live with my homies, my co-hosts, Mr. Jason B. Allen and Mr. Nehemiah Frank, and we are the trio that talks that shit every Monday. Thank y'all for coming back and kicking it with us. And I want to introduce our powerhouse panel. And I think this panel is like dope considering the fact that Black women are doing the fucking thing, like for real. And we just got to continue the trend. So today we have a bunch of dynamic women with us. We have Dr. Danielle Stewart, Miss Christina Guillen, correct? Okay, and Nailah Stevenson, who she's gonna come back. You know, sometimes our internet service is a little janky in Chicago, but I just want to again just talk about how we doing a thing. Like we got a Black woman VP, y'all. Like, am I the only one like excited about that?
No, most
Y'all, please
definitely.
like go in.
I have on my Biden Harris shirt. Yeah, I did. I wore my Biden Harris shirt.
Let's talk about this a little bit because this is big. Like in our lifetime, we've seen a Black male president and a Black woman VP. Like, can we talk about this? And then all the powerhouses, Stacey Abrams and Ayanna Presley, and then Simone Sanders, who led the whole Biden Harris campaign. Like, can we dig into this? This is big. I'm the only one I
Definitely.
hear. I'm in Cancun losing my shit. I was in Texas when I found out I had to be quiet in Texas because Texas been messed with the blues. But when I got to Mexico, I was hyped. So I mean, where's the energy, y'all? Let's hear it for the Black women taking charge.
I'll start off by
Yes.
saying I'm honored to, first of all, be on this panel with such dynamic Black women, women of color who are doing this work on a daily basis. And I believe that that's what we will start seeing more of. Our children have seen on national platforms Stacey Abrams and Keisha Lance Bottoms and so many others who are doing the work. But then we have women who are on the show right now who are doing the heavy lift that we get to really uplift today. So I'm most excited about that and to really see the greatness that's going to continue to happen from the perseverance of Black people. Because I don't want any brothers watching the show feeling like, this is a bash, Black brothers. And I wanted this, dispel that myth that we can celebrate Black women, right? Without making it seem as if Black men aren't doing enough or aren't doing anything. So salute to everyone doing the work, but we have to give it up to Black women, women of color who have come through. I mean, and it not just the election, but have been coming through for years. So just shout out to that was a normal
Right.
public service announcement. It went over about a minute. However, I do feel like Black women deserve that. Women of color deserve that because they have consistently, even when people were like, no, don't do it. They said, no, our communities need this. Our families need this. Our children need this. So I just want to celebrate Black women. Kudos to all Black women, women of color watching, those on the show, definitely celebrate you.
Yes.
Right. Black women have been doing, I mean, the world owes Black women everything. Black women were the first humans to walk the face of this planet. They gave birth to all of the people that are on this planet. So if we want to talk about the strength and resilience of Black women, I mean, we can only look to history. We can look to the military power that Black women had back during pre-colonization. You got Queen Nzinga, who was extremely powerful. There were Black women in the Caribbeans that were leading slave revolts. Absolutely incredible. And so Stacey Abrams, our current vice president-elect, Kamala Harris, we all owe them everything. So I'm really proud. I don't know if you guys saw my Facebook post, but I mean, I was hollering and screaming at the television. Ain't no damn body was in the house but me. I was jumping up and down. The dogs started barking. I had tears in my eyes thinking like, wow, like we actually did this again.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that we almost didn't do it, but it's nice to actually breathe again in this country.
Yeah. Yeah. But not for too long, right? Because I mean, once again, we were put in a situation in which it was kind of like the lesser of two evils, and really like Trump was the evilest of all evils. And so now we're in this position again where we kind of leaning on the Democrats, but we have to not only lean on them, we have to push the hell out of them because they failed us for so long. You
Well,
know,
the good thing is that like we can push the Democrats, right? They've look at Biden, what Vice President elect Kamala Harris said during her victory speech is that you know, he had the audacity to choose a Black woman. He didn't have to choose her. And I'm pretty sure that there's some racist Democrats that decided to not vote for the Biden-Harris ticket because he chose a Black woman. We'll never really know. But one thing that I have learned is that, and this is just with my own personal journey of dealing with white people, is that they have to evolve. They have to unlearn their racism. And I think that Joe Biden is actually willing to unlearn the racism that he has, that he didn't even know that he has.
I want to chime in just right quick, and I'm going to pass the mic to Dr. Danielle Stewart and Christina Guillen. I wanted to say this about another Black woman, Representative Valencia Stovall, who I always commend for how she is educating people on the ground. Like, this is why you need to vote. This is what you need to know. And that is important. I'm also highlighting her because she knows how to work the aisle on both sides. So we cannot just hold Democrats accountable because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have won, right? Because that's where we go wrong too. We have to be able to work with Republicans and say, listen, there is some moral character there. So as a 7 Pillars, shout out to Christina and our family there. But that's one of the things that she's even talked to our students about. It's like, hey, we may have, you know, difference of opinions, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to go shoot up your house. I'm going to punch you in the face. I'm going to probably get an attitude and say, okay, but listen, how can we work together? And so those are the type of people that we need to have in office. And again, that's a Black woman that's out here on the ground, educating people and also building the coalitions needed to make change.
Yeah, absolutely. If I can add, I think that first of all, thank you so much for having me on today's panel. It is with it's such an honor for me to be amongst, you know, people who are not only esteemed in their particular professions, but have no problem putting feet to the ground and doing what's necessary to make sure we continue to move the platform forward. But and mentioning Valencia representatives, what I need is actionable things that result in more money in my account, more time, more care, and my ability to be and do the things I love. That's real things. So white men experience real things all the time, right? Because they experience it with their salaries. They experience it with the status and space that they take up when they walk into a room. That's where I want us to start to see us go. And I'm so excited because I really believe that we are the generation to, I tell my students this, as Jason can tell you, we are the generation to tear down the systems, our age group, those Zennials and Millennials. But that next generation, we're preparing them to rebuild it back up, because we're going to have systems, period. But we need to have systems that serve us, that serve everyone. And so I'm so excited about the time we're in. I'm really appreciative. I know this is going to sound crazy, to the pandemic, because what the pandemic showed, in the words of Sonia Renee Taylor, is that nothing was ever normal, right? We've always been in a space. We normalize, you know, greed. We normalize all these things. And so now we have a chance to stitch together a garment that fits all of humanity. And that's really exciting for me.
That's good.
Yes.
Can I add to that as well? I was going to say also, thank you for having me here as well. I'm really excited to be back. I just wanted to say it's a little different for me because, you know, I think years ago, I learned that I will never be appreciated in society the way that I feel like I should have. I will always be overlooked. And at that moment, living in a white society, going to white schools, I had already determined, I already know my wealth. I know my greatness. So I'm just waiting for all of y'all to see it. And so when the announcement came the other day, it was like, oh, I get why people are screaming, but guess what? I already knew we got, like, I knew how great she was. I know how great we all are. And it was like, okay, next, now let's go back to changing the world. Let's solve the problem.
Let's get to work.
So it was more or less subdued. Like, I've been here.
Yes. I know that's right.
Yeah. And so my frustration was, what took y'all so long? COVID could have been cured. You know, poverty could have been cured. Things could have been cured. And so my thing was like, okay, now while we wasting time and we're going to coddle Biden a little bit, because we know who the real leader is about to be up in that house. Let's just, you know, let's celebrate everybody who's happy, because I'm very happy too. But I need us to keep working. And as the woman who's speaking from an excuse me, I can't even say the word today. From an entrepreneurial mind, it is really important to really always think ahead. Like, I'll celebrate what's happening in the moment, but I'm always thinking about plotting for what's about to happen. So
right. And it's not even about them acknowledging, I think, our worth. It's about put some respect on it. That's my thing. Put some respect on it. I don't need you to acknowledge my greatness, or even pretend to really embrace it. Just put some respect on it. So let's get into this conversation. We talk about starting to work. We have a lot of conversations about building infrastructure within the Black community, having our own. And so that's what we have you guys on the show for. And I want you to, before we even get into the conversation, tell us a little bit about yourselves, because the world needs to know about y'all greatness. Whoever want to go first, just go, just pop on in.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just thought she popped in when she said pop on in. The other young lady popped on in. So that's perfect. But my name is Christina Guillen. I am founder and head of schools for Seven Pillars Career Academy. We are a charter school located in Clayton County, Georgia, servicing the students of Clayton County. We're a 6 through 12 charter that focuses on the 7 pillars of the Ngozo Saba, which are the 7 pillars of civilization founded in the Swahili culture. That's a language, but really in Eastern Africa. And basically, we are here to create the next generation of activists who are going to understand the power of their voice and going to create the systems that we will lead for a better world.
Thank you.
That's powerful.
Hey, I'm Dr. Danielle Stewart, and I am founder and president of an organization called In School Spirit, where we are igniting the school spirit of students of color through educational consulting. We design programs, do research, and we create those programs specifically to meet the needs of students of color. And then we did a spinoff, which is a nonprofit called Community Empowerment Foundation, where we educate, advocate for and with people, and we also empower them with the tools and resources that they need through community engagement. And so a lot of the work we do is really the community voice, advocating for students, parents, and for education.
Openness. Then Nailah, how about you?
All right, I'm Nailah Stevenson. I am a Chicago-based visual artist. My specialty is in portraiture and also mural painting. And so I try to use that platform to try to really promote representation, just basically like what we just saw, like, and how it's really important to stress how much representation matters. That's something that's really near and dear to my heart and very important to me. I do often work with the youth and young people, teaching them how to use the creative arts as a way of self-expression and also just like spiritual and emotional healing and release. And so right now it's very important that we continue to strive for ways to give young people options and exposure and representation. And I do that through my artwork.
Dopeness. So let's get into this conversation, because as I started out saying, we talk about building for Black. The topic of the show is building for Black. And now that, we have a Black woman as VP and, we got Joe Biden, we seem to have some normalcy, whatever, normalcy that existed before. But now we got to flip the script and make life normal for Black people. How do we do that, y'all? Especially in a country that is historically racist and, capitalistic and really values the power of the Black dollar, but doesn't value Black lives. How do we build that infrastructure within our community? Is it possible?
I'll say this. I live by this motto, which is the fact of the matter is that change happens with conversation, but change happens with, it begins with conversation and then it happens with consistency. And I think a lot of times what we tend to not do is we don't follow through. It's real great when it's trendy, when it's like a topic for discussion or controversy or issues, and then we forget. And all of a sudden we're like, it's so much easier. No one wants to put in the work. It's just so much easier to just spend money than to create your own. And so I know that a lot of what I do and how I was taught was the conversations. I need someone to pour into me and to tell me that it's possible. I don't need it to be sold as a dream. I need it to be sold as a reality, which is, what is the vision for you? What is your 5-year goal? What is your long-term 10-year goal? And then start talking and speaking into existence. From that piece, that's when kids start understanding, what we save. And those kids turn into adults who save and create this vision and then teach the next generation.
Yes, yes.
I think it's definitely possible. I think it is actually in the process of happening. I believe that there is an investment. Once again, going back to the pandemic and the positives from the pandemic, there has been an investment in understanding where your dollar is actually going. I know the number of vendors that I now purchase from on a regular basis, not just at a occasional pop-up fair or open air market, but who are now my go-tos for products. Has increased tremendously. So not only is it understanding the power of our dollar, as the Dr. Stewart alluded to, but it is also, I think, taking that dollar and making sure it continues to recycle and to flow through our community as many times as possible. And that's something that I believe the pandemic has really provided us time and more platforms to do. Platforms like TikTok and Instagram have really allowed those smaller businesses to be able to be competitive. And I think that we are now being more enlightened. We're seeing the results of the Fortune 500 and what they really think of us. We know now too much information to continue to move as normal. And even when we start to kind of get settled and get comfortable, this pandemic has a way of coming back around and putting us back at home to refocus us, so to speak. I kind of noticed like in the summertime, we started to kind of move away towards the end of summer and the beginning of school. We kind of started to move away from the movement and what we really needed to do to get that work done. And what happened to them numbers? They started going back up. And so we started coming back in and we were able to kind of recenter. And I think that's what's really needed. When I look in Georgia specifically, the number of Black families that are coming together in small groups and creating their own spaces for creativity, for life. You know, the 19 acres that were purchased by it was more than the 19 acres, but 19 families went in to purchase hundreds of acres of land. You know, those are the kind of moves that we have to see. We have to create those ecosystems that will allow for that continuation of that dollar. People always ask, can we have another Black Wall Street? I think we are on the verge of having another Black Wall Street. And what I'm so excited about is that this one won't be able to be bombed out of existence without consequence. This one won't be able to be smited out in the darkness of night. You know, no longer do these militias and these racial organizations have the cover of darkness to hide beneath. You know, we have lights and we have cell phone cameras even where it's dark. So I'm so excited, to be honest, to be Black right now. I'm so excited to be a Georgian right now. And I'm so excited to be from Clayton County right now because it speaks to the power of all things being possible.
That's right.
Yeah, shout out to, I just want real quick, shout out to Georgia. Y'all, I mean, Georgia came through. ATL, I was finna tell people like, man, if Atlanta don't come through, we got to boycott. We got to boycott Atlanta and Miami because we give y'all too much money for y'all not to be able to flip the state.
No, but seriously, that speaks to the work that's being done on the ground. Keisha Lance Bottoms, you know, and the people that she thanked grassroots organizations. It went beyond Stacey Abrams and her and so many notable figures in Georgia, right? It goes to the people like Dr. Danielle Stewart who are helping Black and brown children who may not have a successful pathway to college. Now, even though they won't say these things, I'm going to definitely say it because we know we have a deficit in preparedness, right? So if our children are not prepared for college or careers, how are they going to really funnel that creativeness to be wealthy?
Right.
Literacy is another issue. You know, we have people like Christina that are on the ground, they're building schools, right? So that we can change the dynamics of soft skills. I love that, you know, we have, I don't want to pronounce your name incorrectly, Nailah on, and she's representing the area of the arts. Like our children are lacking soft skills and don't even know how to communicate. So how can you get someone to buy that rap song or listen to that poetry or look at your art if you don't know how to verbalize what you want them to embrace or take from that? So, you know, just the areas that we have represented, those things impact the vote. And if people don't think that matters, it does, because if you have school leaders that are pushing voter engagement, community leaders that are pushing voter engagement, churches and religious institutions that are pushing voter engagement, then you'll see the results that we saw in Georgia.
Right.
You know what? And I'll add to that too, because one of the biggest things I've noticed is schools that are being birthed out of this COVID. I agree with you, my sister, about COVID being this wonderful release for us. I'm sorry for those who have been lost, but I'm also excited for the rebirth, because what's happening as you talked about the internal building, people have been forced in their homes to figure out how they're going to make things work. And of course, people of color, that's nothing new for us. We've learned to be resourceful. Absolutely. And what I have been witnessing within recent months are Black people now saying, I don't need to pay a whole bunch of white schools to educate my child. I have literally seen about 3 or 4 schools being birthed out of COVID from people of color who worked at private schools, have quit their jobs and have said, I'm going to create a school for students of color. And that is a business. And we should never be ashamed to say that education is a business too.
That's
absolutely.
good.
Yes.
Absolutely. There is no entrepreneurial avenue that you go down that is not commoditized. And so education, just along with everything else, homelessness, it's all commoditized. Right. You have to be able to have those frank conversations and those tough conversations to move us in that space. So absolutely.
Well, and then the other thing too, guys, is this, and I just wanted to throw this needle in the haystack. America has been pimping us on our pain for so many years. Why can't we capitalize off our growth?
Absolutely.
And that's just something to think about. Like if we go back, Neo made this point earlier with history. They've been pimping our pain for endless amounts of time. So why can't we, to Ms. Guillen's point, capitalize off of the growth and the work that we are actually doing to improve our communities?
And pimping our creativity, because I want to hop to Nailah on this. They've been like biting off our creativity as Black people. They hate our skin, but they love our style. They everything, and they've been biting off our creativity for years. So how do, as Jason said, how do we turn that creativity into a bag or coins that we can bring into our community? How important is artistry and creativity to building this infrastructure within the Black community?
Yeah, they've been getting free game for years. We as soon as something is the wave and they get close enough to peep it, then they're gonna take it and they're gonna make the money off of it, and we're gonna see it in commercials. And so right now we need to, as they say, stay woke. We need to stay woke and see who and what companies are conveniently reaching out to us right now, as opposed to the ones who are really trying to include us. And you know what? To be honest, at this point, and I'm optimistic about what's on what's coming around the corner right now for us. I really don't think we need to focus on inclusion. I think right now is the time where we continue to do as we're doing now, continue to do as we've been doing, which is having conversations and creating Black Wall Streets in every major city around this country, because it can be done, because now we're starting to see that Black people can stick together. If this election shows us nothing else, it shows us that Black people can stick together. If the past few months have not shown us anything, even with the riots and the looting, or however you want to verbalize it, Black people will stick together. And so that narrative that we can't get on one accord, we can kind of throw that out the window at this point, because we
it's that falsehood. That falsehood.
Yes, we can get results, and that goes for business building, getting the kids out there into trades, just creating those avenues. Now we know that you are a stone throw away from somebody who knows something about it. Like if you don't know, it's somebody out there. Everybody knows something that knows something that knows somebody that knows something about it.
Yeah,
that's good.
And I want to touch on the tapping into artistry and creativity as a whole, because that's kind of getting into, when we look at the traditional education system, is not designed for our kids to really embrace their talents and their skills. It's really to give them that foundational learning for them to be servants to somebody else's empire, right? And so really incorporating artistry and history of Black history specifically, like how important is Black-centered education in building the infrastructure in Black communities? And is the traditional, can we transform or reimagine education in the traditional system to provide those necessary tools, or is it gonna come from us only?
We can and we should. So yeah, I started out in a private school that taught me about my African culture first. We learned about the Nguzo Saba and the 7 principles of Kwanzaa before we learned about anything else. We weren't thinking about a Santa Claus. We were thinking about Marcus Garvey. We were learning, up you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. you know, and that was from the very beginning. That's how my kindergarten and my first grade started out. We had a rites of passage. We didn't have a graduation. Like those, you know, cultural principles were instilled in us from an early age. And yeah, we do need to get back to that. Like the educators that you know are really put out there now due to the pandemic and the e-learning. I think it's been opened up a lot for parents and families to have that face-to-face with parents in a way, with teachers and educators that, you know, in a way that we haven't seen before. So, you know, now is the time when we can have those open and honest conversations, parents and families and educators, and find out how can we turn this around where it starts to look like us and it can better serve us. And we stop letting others come in and pretty much pimp what we have. We can start doing this for ourselves because it's for us now. If we're in charge of it, who can say what it's supposed to look like? You know, as long as we have our best interests at heart, the way that we shape this thing will come out on the end benefiting us, meaning the communities, the families, and the children.
Right. And if I can add to what Sis is saying on here, I think also one of the things that we don't have to necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater. I know sometimes it feels like we need to because the system has failed us and failed us for so many times. But I think with anything, once you name something, once you recognize what something is, you have all power to change it into what you need it to be. You know, if anything, Lovecraft Country told us we can name ourselves, right? And I believe it's really important and it's vital that we don't abandon systems that are already in place that can work for us. So for example, in Georgia, there are many school districts that are almost 100% led, run, and teaching Black students and students of color. And so when you have those systems already in place, what we have to do is demand that we have a curriculum that is truthful and representative. We don't need to necessarily redo history. History is what history is. What we need to do is teach it truthfully, represent the cultures and peoples who make up the population and the dollars and the tax base of that district. There is no reason why the funding that is afforded to every student in the state of Georgia or across the United States in public education, you have to go to a private school or you have to go to a school. And I'm part of it. I sent my students to I sent my personal children to an African-centered school. But then I realized, you know what? I pay taxes as well. So my students who are in public schools or private schools need to be learning the same truths, because as long as it's grounded and rooted in truth, we have the ability to do it. So all we have to do is create actionable steps. I think that's really important. What are we demanding now that we've got these people in office, right? And when we need to have a demand that incorporates a national curriculum that is historically accurate. There is no reason we should still have books that call slavery indentured servitude. There is no reason we should still have curriculums where the first time you see where the first time you see a Black person is under the regime of being transported across the Atlantic Ocean. And in the state of Georgia, if you are in 4th grade, that is the first time you see a Black person, and it is in speaking of the civil rights, the Civil War and Black people as slaves. That's why there was so much controversy all the time. Every year in Georgia, we have controversy when teachers try to teach the Civil War era in 4th grade, because they always assign this role. It's actually part of our curriculum, this reenactment, and they assign where you can be a plantation owner, or guess what? If you're a little brown kid, you're gonna be what career path did you have available to you during this time period? So no, let's be historically accurate. If we're gonna talk about ancient civilizations, let's go ahead and start with Kemet. Let's start with Kush. Let's start with the real first civilization and show the world what these people look like. We do a disservice to everyone. We continue to reinforce racism, even in white households that are not necessarily racist, just by the public education curriculum that we teach people. Mm-hmm. If we continue with this idea of the benevolent white person and the lazy Black person, we will continue to have these cycles every generation, and we're just tired of it. We are tired of it. So I definitely believe that there is space within the infrastructure that we currently have to fix things and move forward, but it's going to take voices of ours. It's going to take parents who look like us going in there and demanding it. And we should be able to do it because the people who are running it, the people behind the dollars, also look like us, at least here in Georgia. And so let us be the flagship, because once one place does it, it becomes a lot easier everywhere else. It becomes a lot easier to call out those other states that are using those antiquated curriculums. We have way too many people who have created curriculums that are culturally appropriate. There's a woke school curriculum that has an amazing social studies curriculum that is based on truth and accuracy. You know, we have representative documents out there. We just have to make sure we make them a part of our public school curriculums.
That's good.
Yes. Dr. Stewart, you want to get in on this?
I did. I didn't know if y'all were moving on or not, but I was like,
no, we just jump in over here. It's like a porch conversation. We all family talking.
I got two things. So many things just popped in my head. First and foremost, name your price. As Black women, we are always going to do some stuff for free. This is a year where you say, name your price. Because I tell you this, even if we're going to do it for half the amount, oftentimes we are so uncomfortable with naming a value amount to what we do. And what we give is such a gift in different areas. And I will tell you, as an artist, as an educator, everybody who's out here listening, I was told very, very early in business is the reason that people won't give you money is because they don't want to give you money. When you tell them how much you're worth, that's when they won't back down. They'll go, oh, okay. Oh, that's all. Oh, okay. They'll write a check. They'll write a check because you tell them the amount. That's true. So we ourselves, even though we know that we are valuable people, sometimes people don't understand what that value means. So name a price to your product, name a price to your service. And this is the time where you capitalize off of that, because right now you've got white guilt. And they are looking for you to come and to heal their community that they can't heal. They can't heal the Black people that they've traumatized. And so they are ready to write a check to have you heal. And even that's not your job. That is labor that we don't need to do. But if you're going to do it, name your price. And when you name your price, I'll tell you this, because we are guilty of this as people of color. We go to where everybody else spends money. And if no one's spending money in our own communities, then guess what? We're not going to do it either. And so I know a lot of times we find value in when we spend it outside of the community, because it's got to be better. It's got to be, the quality's got to be great. Instead of just giving small businesses, Black-owned businesses a chance, we don't invest in our own product. And that's because, again, we have failed in some way in putting a dollar amount on it. This is the year right now, again, and I know it helps with people of color supporting people of color, but sometimes it's going to be, hey, I'm going to tell that white person as well, this is my price. And Gary, you're going to get about 20 Black people to follow behind that white person to write you a check as well.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right. I'm so happy that for everything that you just said, because it's extremely important. And I don't know if it's just a symptom that's been passed down from generation to generation from slavery, that we aren't to be paid anything, that, our labor is just our labor and our talents are just to be free, but they're not. And just to be a witness to what Dr. Stewart has said, I just wanted to help folks when I first started the Black Wall Street Times. So I was sitting up here giving out ad space for free, right? Ad space. Can you believe that? Now to me, it's like, boy, it's like, what were you doing? And now it's like, this is the price. If you have a small business, I'll work with you. But if you're a corporation and you come into me and you're trying to get some ad space on the Black Wall Street Times, you are going to have to pay that standard price that you would pay any other website owner.
Right.
And so our household, we've been able to come up quite quickly, right? Just because we started to get paid what we're worth.
Absolutely.
And able to employ other Black people and women, because there's a value that I didn't see in the product that I'm giving out. And so society's moving a little bit better. People can feed their kids. People can move about and start their own dreams, because I myself am able to get paid.
And continuing to self-check our narrative, I think, is also so important. To add on to, I think, what these two people have just shared. When I say self-check the narrative, I mean, I have had to step into conversations amongst us, and say, hey, we don't give up on all Black business because we had a poor experience at one Black business, right? Because I've been treated shitty every time I go to Walmart, and I still go back. And so it begs the question why, it's once again symptomatic of the belief and stereotypes that we've been fed, the lies we've been fed, that we don't create luxury brands, that we don't create luxury products, when that is so far from the truth. I have an amazing dress by Christine Brown, who is a artist out of Ghana. She is a clothing designer out of Ghana, and she makes amazing custom pieces that will have you connecting to the ancestors. It's just, I mean, beautiful work. Yes. But for every Dolce and Gabbana, there is a Beano and a Fino. And what I mean by that is that we have to also decide that luxurious things and luxury are not inescapable from us, but we have our own, we can create our own luxury brands. We don't have to depend on who society tells us is being luxury, because I believe your Black Wall Street, for example, can be our source of financial news, you know, and that doesn't, you're not any less than a regular Wall Street Journal. You are not any less than some other. So that comparison, I think, is so important. And then the harshness that we treat our Black brands, you know, when you have a poor experience, I'm a business owner as well. And just like with every business, there are times where I've trained my staff, they might not operate in the way that I've trained them accountable for. Give me the opportunity to make it right before you go on Facebook and you blast me on Yelp with 1 star, because that's going to hurt my business way more differently than it's going to hurt Facebook, or when you're going after H&M, right? They have thousands and hundreds of thousands so they can absorb those kind of shocks. But give that small Black business the opportunity to make right your experience. Now, of course, I'm not saying be no glutton for punishment. If somebody ain't doing right with your money, you're not doing right by you and your customer service, go ahead and leave them alone. But how we treat each other is so very important, because it lets the world know how to treat us as well. What we demand from our vendors, I have a high standard when it comes to how I spend my money, but I'm gonna give my Black businesses that extra chance to make it right before I go in and blast them on some kind of review or something like that.
I wanted to chime in right quick on this powerful lesson about grace. Ask me where I learned this from, right? One of the things when Christina mentioned about the value in staff and how you support your staff and changing the, you know, the perspective of Black owned businesses, we don't give each other grace. And we also don't have enough Black business owners that are really driving their staff to do the same thing. Because if we give each other grace, we understand that no one is perfect. We all are going to make mistakes. And I think that if we start to find the value, this conversation speaks to classism, it speaks to sexism, because even with my hat, I wore a New York hat today because I just wanted to rep Hillary Clinton, because it's not so much that she's perfect or that she would have been the person that I chose to vote for. It is the greater fact that men in this country were like, a woman thinks she's gonna have the audacity to run for president. And this is real, y'all, because these same conversations came back up this election cycle when Harris was chosen by Biden. Well, even Black men, why would I vote for her? Why am I voting for a female? So even with us combating and fighting racism, we have to have that same grace with sexism and all these other people that, to be honest, have different freedoms because of the civil rights movement. The call to action of Black and brown men and women in this country that said, hey, we cannot treat women like this. Women need to have rights too. The LGBTQ community, they need to have rights too. The brown community, they need to have rights. Afro, Latino, et cetera, so forth. We open these doors, but that speaks to the grace that we as Black people have for everyone else, and we lack to show that same grace to ourselves.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to just bring up this one little point. When I learned at the beginning of business, and, you know, coming from humble beginnings and still humble, it was really important to understand I spend so much money. All of us spend money, and local businesses take for granted the value of the Black dollar. You know, we've got about, you know, all these grocery stores and restaurants in the area. And one thing I had to do and learn as I realized I'm spending money and I'm trying to get people to pour into my business, I needed to really practice and understand that there are expectations that I need to require of these businesses I'm spending my money at, Black, white, whatever. And you talk about these places that have chains, you know, I tell people constantly when it's about community engagement and having businesses support whatever you're doing, in the name of education or in the name of small businesses or the name of nonprofits, You have every right to locate a manager in a local business that you support probably 3 times a week and ask them, hey, I spent a lot of money in here. What do you have for me?
That's good.
I have a nonprofit I'm building. Y'all got some freebies. You got some gift cards. And I promise you, they will give it to you because people do not know the art of asking. And all it is to simply ask. And another thing too, before you ask, remember this. You can go in there and do 2 things. You can go into that store and complain every time they do something wrong, or you can also go in there and acknowledge when they do something right, because you're developing a relationship and a rapport.
Yes,
and again, that's right. And the value of a Black dollar, because we like to spend money, is 9 times out of 10, you will get that ask because they know your value. They just don't ever let you know that they know your value.
That's good.
But go in there and ask, because they will give you stuff.
Ask me how we got Starbucks to be our sponsor. I had so many stars. I said, listen.
That's right.
But look, 9,000 stars without spending some G's. It's ridiculous.
But look, I think these tips are important just to bring it back to how we build Black. Like, we talk a lot about entrepreneurship and, you know, again, building our own businesses from the ground up. But I think that for a lot of us, that education piece is missing, right? Mm-hmm. And so you might not have someone who starts a business and knows how to perfect customer service or knows how to, you know, do HR. And so I think, you know, when we talk about as entrepreneurs, because I think we've all, you know, Neo's a self-starter, Jason's a self-starter. I was a consultant at one point and I, you know, messed my taxes up because I didn't know how to do that reporting. How important is it that when we have those conversations that we talk about the education that goes with it? When we telling our kids, I've heard so many people say, well, y'all got time during the pandemic. Y'all should be, you know, getting DBAs and 5C3s and, you know, whatever else. Y'all should be having your own businesses, but a lot of us don't have the education behind us to start our own businesses. Then we fail, and when we fail, we don't get back up. And so what tips do y'all have? And, you know, if you want to talk about your personal journeys and obstacles with being an entrepreneur, what tips do y'all have for aspiring entrepreneurs in building our own infrastructure in our own communities?
So your question be loaded.
It really do be loaded.
I'm sorry, I'll be going.
You know, as Dr. Stewart said, as Jason said, we got to make space for grace, because it is in our DNA to be self-starters, right? It is in our DNA to do those things. And yes, it's true. While we're less likely to have the education or the pathways to start a business and have a successful business, we're going to start it anyways, whether it's, you know, selling something out of our cars or out of our house on Instagram, we're going to get started. And so it's up to Black brothers and sisters in the community who have the experience to reach out and say, hey, this is how I did it. Or, hey, do you want a mentor? And also, just if you do purchase from them and you have business experience, as she had mentioned, tell them how they can improve. Tell them where they went wrong. Sharing information is extremely powerful. It goes a very, very long way. That's how I was able to just get to where we are now. And I'm still learning. Now I'm at a space where I can hire a consultant who knows what the hell they're doing, right? And can kind of say, hey, you need to do this and you need to do that. But 2 or 3 years ago, I didn't have the money to hire a consultant. And 4 years ago, I didn't even know that I needed a damn consultant, right? But now I see the value of having a consultant and, you know, paying them to be able to help me move the Black Wall Street Times to the next level.
Mm-hmm. I would add, if you're not in the space to necessarily, I would add, is there times? Does that mean the time is up?
No.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I would add that if you're also in that space to grow and learn, humbling yourself and leveraging mentorship. Mentorship is so powerful, and I think it's something that our community does not use often. We use it often, but we don't formalize it. So a lot of times we'll have these kind of informal mentorships, but taking the time to craft that email and say, hello, I would like to enter into a formal mentorship, and this is what it looks like. I can give of my time, because most large organizations or most very busy people are often reticent to begin internships because we already feel pulled. But if you bring what you have in value to that table, it changes the game. I had a young lady reach out to me and ask for a mentorship, but the first thing she said is, what ways can I volunteer within your organization? What do you need support in that my time can alleviate for you? That's going to change the game on my response to her now, because it's not just something that's draining me. It's a exchange. It's a symbiotic relationship. So understanding what you can do to become symbiotic in the situation. And that's really powerful. Your time what you often have when you're starting off a business is something that somebody who's already made it normally doesn't have, and that's time. And so you offering your time in exchange for their business expertise not only shows a respect and value for where they are and what they're bringing to the table in regards to that free information, but it creates a dynamic of a real long relationship. When you look at a lot of the majority, I even hate to call them the majority, when you look at a lot of white folks, right, you oftentimes see that they've had these generations of family friendships, right? Everyone seems to know everyone. This is not by accident, it's by design. It's making sure their children go to certain schools where they meet certain people. And so when you grow up now, it's a lot easier to get that intern at that Fortune 500 company, because that was Austin's dad, right? Because that's Austin's dad's company. We have to create those spaces that our relationships garner us something. We have moved into this space where there should be no expectation. I think that's weird, and I think it's dangerous, because everything in life has a cost, everything in life has a value, everything in life has a price. And when we come to that space in a positive, uplifting way, we can use that to move our community and our agenda forward. But it must be with a humble heart, and it must be with a precise ability to speak, or to at least write what it is that's going to be of value in this exchange for both parties involved. So really being able to leverage mentorship, I believe, is going to be a huge tool to have an infrastructure for our own communities to move forward, and economies to move forward.
And if I could just add one more thing. So when I started the Black Wall Street Times, it was just me. And I really didn't know who or where to get my mentorship from. Now, I'll be honest, I wanted a Black mentor, but they're far and few in between when it comes to the type of job market that I've chosen to go into. And so one of my mentors ended up being a white man, right? A white man from Oklahoma, out of all places, right?
It's actually very appropriate with the Black Wall Street.
And let me tell you, I was like, man, this is an interesting space. But I mean, if he wants to be my mentor, let's go for it. Let's see where it goes. And I'll be honest with you, I have a validated bias against white men, as most Black people probably do. But as our relationship and our friendship developed, the trust, I began to gain a little bit more trust in this guy. I was like, yeah, this guy is actually really helping me out. He's sending me information about money opportunities, about grant opportunities to continue to grow my business. So don't shut yourself off. Have wisdom, for sure. Have discernment, but don't close yourself off, because the mentorship, the wisdom, it could come from any direction.
Absolutely.
I really hate y'all ask this question, because I'm mad as hell, because I could talk about this topic like all day. So I hope there's a part 2 to this. So I'll keep it short and sweet. One thing I've always learned is that we as a people have to learn, before we are employers, be good employees and be intentional. Be intentional. What I mean is, you don't just have to take any old job, but take a job where you are not only just learning, you're learning a trade, you're learning business best practices, you're learning a craft, you're learning enough, and you're getting paid to learn. Because at some point, it may not be what you're actually learning right there, but it's the habits. It's something that you're getting out of there, because you are designed for greatness. You're designed for not just that one business that you're working for and supporting, but you are like building and building. And I remember before I decided before I turned 40, I would have my own business and not work for anyone else. Is that I was working 5 jobs, but each job was intentional. Each job was, I'm going to do the consulting here. I'm going to do this because I have to pay my bills. I'm going to do this because this is going to help me build clientele for my own business. There was a strategy. I was intentional with every step of the way. And so when people couldn't understand why I didn't hate working at a job, it was because I was getting something out of the deal. And you cannot tell me that right now I am literally basking in that sacrifice I made and being intentional and knowing that, because as educators, we know that life is about learning. Like, you are going to be a lifelong learner. And when it comes to business, it should be the exact same way. Because what happens is, once many of us make it over, we don't want to share unless, we don't got time to share, because we just made it through and we don't want to talk about it. We don't have time to talk about it. And so I say, whatever you do, whatever age you are, make sure that you are really thinking about not just where you're working, but what you're getting out of that, because you're not always going to be an employee. Not
That's
forever,
good.
unless you want to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now let's jump to, we got a few more minutes. I want to get to this real high. I agree. We need a part 2 about this, because we talking about building for Black and building, sustainability and greatness. But
we got to talk about banks, sis. We got to talk about, we got time, because we can't build Black without banks.
That's right. That's right. And, I think, these go hand in hand. We talking about gentrification and push out in the Black communities, how we're being moved out of our own, communities that we've been in forever. And a lot of Black people around the country are having conversations and putting feet to the ground and buying the block. So can y'all speak to that? How, again, before we get pushed out to places that we don't want, pushed out and priced out, how gentrification is affecting us as a community and how we need to reclaim our blocks. How do we do that?
I think it's an art to building, though. I mean, if we look at our family histories, if we look at the history of Black and brown people in the world, there were systems. It's a way, how, Christina mentioned this. How are we building Black families? How are we building Black schools? How are we building Black businesses before we can definitely get out here and say, Black lives matter? Well, are we investing, right? Investing our time, our talent, our treasure. We have to start investing or reinvesting in us, first. And then I end my point with this. I think it's interesting, and I hate that our other guests, it's that internet, though. It's not just Atlanta, y'all. That's a conspiracy. It's not Atlanta, it's everywhere. But the power of the arts, when I look at, my wall of Black legends, and I think about Lorraine Hansberry and James Baldwin, Langston Hughes, who all played a major role in getting out the message. So what message are we getting out, to our young people? One of the City Girls songs, and I do listen to that, very sparingly, almost like the Real Housewives of Atlanta. But they name all of these fashion designers, not one Black person. But our youth, they love this song. They know they know Poochie, they know Gucci, they know everything. But they don't know any Black designers. They don't know any Black banks. They don't know any Black-owned corporations, because it's lacking in our art. It's lacking in our educational field. It's lacking in our society. So I think that building begins with us sharing our stories and making that true investment in Black lives.
That is so powerful that you said that. You said exactly what is probably on everybody's hearts here, what's clearly on Kandra's heart as well. And that translates all over. Like, we Black folks, we still have a lot of internalized racism that we need to unlearn, and we need to vomit it out of our systems. And that goes back to supporting Black businesses, building strong Black schools. If we want to rebuild the infrastructure, we have to invest in our Black community schools that we start and that are led by us with complete and full autonomy. That's how Black Wall Street came about. That's how many Black successful towns throughout the South that we don't even know about, that may have gone under due to the Great Depression or due to urban removal, right? We have to get back to the basics. We got to get back to supporting our businesses, but that comes through education, which means that we need a cultural change in the mindset of Black people. We need to learn to really love ourselves completely through and through.
So that's where we got to start, huh, Neo? I would say so, that, historically oppression has done a lot to us as a community, with internalized, hatred and things like that. In order for us to successfully build together, then we have to really unpack and really eradicate all those everything that's been done to us as Black people in this country.
And can I say one more thing? Yeah, right. I want to say one more thing. So, so we got a place in Atlanta. And I remember when I went and tried out this restaurant. I believe it's in East Atlanta. It's called like Merche Petite or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a Black woman owns it. Mm-hmm. And the second I walk into this place, before I even hear any customer, I can tell that it was made with love, and that the person that made this space made it for Black people to feel welcomed and to feel loved. All of the staff, they're Black. But what I was really impressed by is this young Black man. He's probably like 16, 17, 18, somewhere around that age, right? A teenage young brother working. He was working as one of the people to bring out your food. And so I remember how respectful he was to me. It was unbelievable. I was like, man.
He has a prison hiring program, actually. So it's a really powerful.
Yeah. Who taught this young boy to give love? You know what I mean? And it was just a meal. The boy was just giving me my food, y'all. That was it. But I could tell from the way that the food was prepared to how clean the place were. I mean, they literally broke every negative stereotype of what a Black business is supposed to give. It was Black excellence that they gave.
And I'm sorry.
It rubbed off on me, and I'm sorry. Go ahead. I won't hog the mic, y'all.
No, I was going to say, Tanisha, to add to that, I think we also have to be strategic as to what blocks we're buying. There's no need to buy every block, because certain blocks we were placed on that we really shouldn't have been anywhere because of gerrymandering and redlining and things like that. So I think we have to be so purposeful. The idea of buying the block sounds good, but trends and fads are not going to help move us to where we need to go. We need to create communities and economies ecosystems that are really wholesome for us. And so I believe that buying certain blocks, buying certain downtown areas, right? Because there are certain things that we know community, especially for us, we need. We're going to need a spiritual house. We're going to need a food house. We're going to need a school house. And so making sure that we create, those areas strategically. If we have a community that is being bought out and gentrified, and that community is already over half gone, making sure our elders are cared for and placed in an area where they can be loved, that's a walkable community, that they can still walk to receive their groceries, or making sure they're close to a community garden. I think we should buy back the block, but I think we need to make sure that we buy specific blocks that are going to be a part of our larger schema of things. And we do have, especially in Georgia, we really have some cities and whole communities, unfortunately, that have, because of factories closing down, that have kind of are for sale. There are cities for sale. And so I think that's the kind of strategy that we have to use, because buying one strategic block in East Atlanta might make us feel good, but is that really helping move forward our needle on the overall economy that we're trying to birth?
It's good.
That part. And I want to shout out Toya real quick, who said early in the conversation, she said strategy. Toya watches our show faithfully every week, and if we could, Toya, we go get you an award or something for tuning in. But Toya said the exact same thing, like we need a strategy around how we build and battle block and do this. I'm sorry.
Okay,
go ahead.
I just got to 1 second about Toya, because she's not just watching, but literally, y'all, she is supporting even organizations. I've talked about 7 Pillars before. I've talked about Dr. Stewart's organization. I've talked about Ivy and other organizations that I support. And as a Black woman, she is praying for those organizations and making sure that, our ancestors are sending the right people to these places. And I just wanted to shout that out, because again, this is a Black woman that even behind the scenes, like, I'm supporting you on the front line, but I want you to know that you're in my prayers, you're in my thoughts. Like, when I'm thinking about creative things, I'm putting it out there in the atmosphere for you and the people that are connected to you. So again, I just wanted to, when you open the door, Tanisha, so I said, let me just come in.
Yeah. Now I got to open the door for our final comments, y'all, because we are at the end of the show and we will have a part 2, but today we got to go. So I just want to open whatever y'all final comments, go and get them out there. Now's the time.
I'm going to give you your homework, because this is what I want to say.
There we go.
So there's 2 things. Collaboration and education is how you start with this business building. And you talk about buying back the blocks. And so when you think about the kids that right now, kids who, before they graduate high school, can start getting their real estate license. So if you're talking about building black, I can't even talk, building back the blocks. That is a great way to start, but also the collaboration piece. You know, you don't have to be one person to buy a business. You don't have to be one person to buy a block, but you know, families are coming together and put together their money, and they can buy some stuff too. So collaborate.
Josh, go ahead. I know you have to.
Yeah, I'm sorry, y'all. We got a, you know, if you watch Citizen Ed, we have a network, a series of shows, and we have one of our other activists coming on now. So I actually have to cut our comments short today, but we definitely gonna have Christina and Dr. Stewart back on for part 2 of building for Black. But in the meantime, y'all stay good, and thank y'all so much for tuning into another TDRS. Go out and be hella Black and hella proud, and we'll catch y'all next time.
See y'all 6 o'clock tonight in Atlanta. Peace.
Yes.